I'm Laurence Payne, the host of Dialogue Houston here on HCC's TV. We're here every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., again on Saturday afternoons at 3 p.m. But today we're here for a very special presentation podcast of HCC's 50 years and counting. Yes, we're celebrating our wonderful 50th anniversary this year, and joining me on the set for this special presentation are two individuals who have been a mainstay of this college from the very beginning. In fact, they served on the very first board of HCC when it was still part of HISD before it became HCC. I'm going to let them kind of tell you about that history. Joining me today is Bruce Austin, who was representative of District 2 and also a graduate of Wheatley High School. And joining me also is Pretta VanDible, Stallworth, the representative of District 9, a graduate of Worthing High School. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
It is great to have you here because this is such a great opportunity to relive this whole history. You were on the very first founding board.
Yes, we were.
And you're back now as our wonderful representative for District 9.
I am back. Yes, I am.
So I want to hear from both of you, but Bruce, I'm going to start with you because I remember some of those early days when you were on the board and some of the challenges you had and everyone had, and just having people understand the concept of what HCC could be and become.
Yes, I think we all wanted the education system to be better. But those of us who came from economically deprived communities wanted more to see education flourish because we realized that it was the means to an end. Better education means better opportunity, better job opportunities and things of the sort. And that's what we saw happening. And I think a lot of us, if we had any tension at all, it was whether that story would be told. Mm-hmm. The good thing about it, I think everybody was convinced that we needed to go in a very positive direction and we needed to get to slowly build out of what we had done previously.
Pretta?
One of the interesting things about being on the first board is we had the opportunity to define who we would be. And as a board of 9 members, and we were very diverse, we were far more diverse than other college boards in the region. So we had an understanding from very different perspectives. And all of those understandings had to come together in a unified manner to define a mission, to define a vision, and then to work cohesively to make sure that we executed that mission and vision appropriately.
Given the era that was, somewhere around 1989 and et cetera. Even though you had a diverse board, even though you were working toward the same goal, purpose, and vision, I can imagine during that era, though, it still was some challenging things to get people on the same paragraph, the same sentence.
Indeed.
Yes, that is true. Now, and to say that there was not confusion, that there was not disagreement, there was. I remember, I think the most fantastic thing that happened, I often got into the skirmishes with Jim Murphy. But one day Jim and I were talking, and we found we were both Catholic, we were both in the Boy Scouts, I said, wait a minute, we started thinking, say, we actually had a very similar upbringing. And everything changed all of a sudden because we start realizing, and I think the more interaction you have, the more understanding you have. And I think that's the key. If you only perceive based on what you think a person may be, well, you may have that problem. But when you start talking to people, when you start experiencing things with people, you start feeling very similarly about how to change things. And I think we did. I think we did.
What we have in common is a big part of it.
Yes, it is. At the time, there were only 2 women on the board and 7 men. So Herlinda Garcia and I often had to have conversations about how were we going to have our voice heard, particularly for women, because Herlinda Garcia was education corporate, a elementary school principal, so her bosses were male, and I was in engineering. So there, in my particular job at that time, there were only 7 women.
Wow.
in a whole office of 150 people, there were
Right.
7 women engineers. So we had lived similar circumstances, and we wanted to make sure that women had the opportunity for upward mobility. We were looking for that glass ceiling so that we could shatter it.
So the hallmark of any board coming together, doesn't matter how diverse the board is the ability to develop those relationships built on mutual trust and respect. And when you put a new group of people together, that takes a little time.
It
Yes,
takes
it
a little
does.
time.
Yes,
A
it
little
does
time to
indeed.
be able to really have that relationship bloom out of that mutual trust and respect, because nothing happens without trust. And so I'm sure that in the beginning, as you both said, that was kind of a cornerstone to make everything else work that followed that, spending time together, getting to know each other.
Yes.
Doing,
Well,
doing things together.
And I think, in my case, I was the director of Harris County's Community Development Office. So I was doing things in the unincorporated areas of Houston, and unfortunately, we found in almost every community that education was key. So I came with my community development background, other people came with their backgrounds, and I think when we start putting those backgrounds together, the synergy that occurred was we felt we needed a new direction. And that's when I think J.B. Whiteley was the
Right.
president then, and we moved from J.B. to, I forgot.
Green.
To Green.
Dr. Green.
Who came with a different view from Maricopa County. The view may have been a little, it was good. That's when we started the different colleges.
Right.
With the different colors and the different emblems and all. But I think that was good. And even Burger Sassa came with other views about where we should go and how we should be arranged. And then, of course, I think Bruce Leslie, he had his view, and he was, it was a unique time because we started preparing for bond issue and things of this sort. And I think they were very successful. But I think the most important thing, though, was that this board started really getting together. Now, as you said, the more change you have to the board, you got to start this process all over again.
Yes.
Because it's a new system, a new entity,
Right.
and that becomes the real issue, whether everybody can sync again.
And going forward, because that era had a different demographics of students than we have
Right.
now, and going forward as we look to the future of the next 50 years, we're kind of at a pause now in the demographic numerical shift from being a college that was 50-50, 60-40, at some point 70-30. Now it's predominantly majority-minority college. And so the challenges and opportunities that go with that in how one educates and reaches that population, how we do our pedagogy, assessment, all those things have to change. And the beautiful thing is that HCC is changing and adapting with that in some very, very creative ways. But it is a lot of difference from what it was even a few years ago.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. One of the interesting things about District 9 is that 1/3 of my district is actually international. And I probably have the most diverse district because of that. In being able to communicate and connect with students who are first-time Americanized citizens, whose parents clearly understand the value of education, but cannot navigate a system. And so even in my community, there are only 63 households, and so there are 5 American families. So they come to me and say, "You will help us."
Right.
Well, yes, I will. And what I've learned is that you must take it to the people. You must ask the people, what do you need? What do you want? Where would you like to see your education take place? The great thing about Houston Community College is that the facilities are in community. We actually put the word community back into community college. And now being able to go out into those communities and really ask and cultivate and build these relationships and bring those international communities into the forefront along with our cultural communities. It is really an awesome thing to see. I'm very excited about it.
And it's blossoming every day and
Yes, it
having
is.
fruit in many ways. Every time you turn around, there's a new something popping up. But Bruce, I want to go back just for a moment before I go forward to the present and in the future. During those eras when we all were having our growing pains in Houston from diversity, during that era when people were really trying to figure out what does it mean to be in a city that's changed in a way. In District 2, you had something called community advisory councils at your colleges. I know because I served on one of them as the president. We really were able, because it was community-based, because it was neighborhood-based, you had the leadership from the community and neighborhood, they were able, therefore, to talk about almost every issue that we had to address, because you made sure we engaged everybody. That was, I think, a major thing back then.
Yes, but I think the important thing is whether or not the college was addressing
That's where I'm
the
headed.
issues
Yes.
that people really needed. You see, the population does not have research bases. They don't really know, and I found that the high school of yesteryear is no longer the high school
Right.
of today, and the community college's role is even greater. It needs to be greater because it needs to enter those halls of and give those students the ability to see what the possibilities are. And I think as that changes, we'll see much more growth. What I'm concerned about is people getting educations so they can get higher in employment. Because higher in employment is where you want to go, so people can understand this is how you grow a community. You have to work, you have to put some effort into it, but it takes some growth. And I think we have the ability to do that as a community college, and I've always supported that concept.
And both of your high schools that you graduated from, both Wheatley and Worthing, and the relationship it has with HCC and working together now, is an example of what you just said. What high schools were then, what high schools are now,
Right.
the needs of the community and the students in those high schools now and then are very different.
Yes, yes, indeed. Worthing is one of our smaller high schools, and when I got on the board, the first thing I noticed in District 9 is that we did not have dual credit. As a matter of fact, Lone Star College was in Westbury High School, providing dual credit. So the first thing was to remove Lone Star College from Westbury High School in my district.
Coaching on geographics, yes.
And then I realized in order for our high schools to stay viable, we needed to look at something different. So dual credit high schools, early college high schools, because our students were beginning to believe that college was not for them. And when they found out in 9th and 10th and 11th grade they could take a college course, and it wasn't that bad. They figured out that I can actually get a 2-year degree while I'm in high school. So we really started to cultivate the dual credit students. And right now we spend about $8.5 million investing in dual credit students, and it is working wonderfully. Worthing High School is doing an amazing job, and my hat's off to Dr. Campbell Roan, because she has gotten in there and drawn in community, and the school is growing again. So it will probably not exceed 1,200, 1,400,
Right.
but you want a small
Right,
high
you
school.
do.
You want to be able to change when the students come. And they're still predominantly African-American high schools.
Yep.
And that is a rarity in this city.
Yeah.
Well, I look at Wheatley now. Wheatley is like 47% Hispanic, 50 plus African American, and so this it was even integrating when I was in school because that's when we started all that. But I think the fruit of what Pretta is talking about now is the fact that in these career technical education courses that come under their called endorsements under the House Bill 5 of the state, you have the chance to actually explore 15,000 different careers. That's what those 26 different pathways represent. The problem is we got to get people interested in that. And the reason why I think it's so important is because we found not only dual education, but we found that this career technical education causes an acute critical thinking ability of students. You don't teach the way you did in the Socratic method.
Right.
Yes.
The students actually learn by doing. And I think that that is so important, and it actually has driven people there. And I'm not just talking from Bruce.
Right.
This is the Department of Education. These are many other studies that have been done that show that this causes a tremendous change in the student population, which actually will start a change in the community.
Yes.
And that change is very visible now, the things that are happening, because now some of those wonderful certificate programs that are 9-month programs, you can see at the end of that program, you can get a job. A
Right.
starting
Yes.
salary of around $60,000 for some of them.
Yes.
That's a major
That's
thing.
amazing.
I'm not 2-year college material. I'm certainly not but I have a career path. I have a way out and a way up now that's very clearly laid out.
Yes, and what we appreciate is you used to hear the statement, college is not for everyone. College is for everyone. And having the technical trades and the skills in the community college, allowing high school students to come in and take advantage of that first certificate course without taking the TSI exam,
Yes, yes.
whets their appetite for future.
Yes, it
And so
does.
we are very excited to see them come along. We're very excited that these programs are as short as 9 months. We have the Certified Nurse Aide program, which is 4 days a week, 4 hours a day, 6 weeks, done.
Yep.
And that gives them a starting salary of $15
I
an
know.
hour,
You get-
a working wage.
Right.
And the next 2 levels of the pathway takes them from $15 an hour to $30 an hour.
Yep.
And they're done in less than a year. So they can actually see the light
Yeah.
at the end of the pathway.
And that's very
they-
important, to
it's
be able to
very
see
important.
that progression.
If I can just add something what Pretta's saying, what we found at the community college over the years is that students would drop in and drop out. They drop in and drop out. When the work was plentiful, they dropped out. When the work was not as plentiful,
Right,
they
dropped
dropped in and
right.
they attended school. So we said, well, wait a minute. If this is a pattern that's occurring, that means that we should be able to fulfill the dropping out process by saying, well, you can do online courses.
There we
You
go.
can do you can keep it active. And I think when we started that, we saw more participation.
Yes.
And I think that's the way to go in the future, is to a blended concept. But the most important concept is in these technical education points. I was telling you that the Texas Workforce Commission has done a report on technical skills in the state of Texas, and it says that we are going to be hurting very soon. Like, I'm not talking about 5 years down the road, I'm
Right.
talking
Next
about
year.
a year and a half.
Yes.
That a lot of these people are leaving because of retirement.
Yes.
But where are their replacements?
Right, right.
Now, the problem with that is when you don't have people making money in this in this economy, that causes stores to suffer, retail to suffer. More than that, it causes the people to suffer. And I think we need to do everything we can to keep that from happening.
Yes.
But we've been growing as a community college.
Yes, we
I think I'm very proud of it.
Well, one of the challenges and opportunities that I think the college is addressing is you have students from younger, middle age, older age, veterans. Now you have seasoned seniors coming back
Yes,
with
yes, we
wisdom
do.
and wanting to take courses.
Yes, we
So
do.
as you change, adapt, and grow to be able to accommodate all of that, that's the beauty of it.
Yes.
That really puts the seed back into community college, that you're serving all aspects of the community.
Yes. One of the keys that I sought out were lifelong learners, because you've got to have lifelong learners. But there was an unintentional benefit in that our inaugural class at South Campus, the inaugural class, saw 125 elders to show up. But not only did they show up, they went back and got their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, their church members, their neighbors, and we mushroomed from about 125 students a semester to 1,600 in 60 days. They just kept showing up.
1,660 days?
They just kept showing up, and we would get phone calls. My granny said I have to. So you knew that they
Right,
would not drop
right.
out.
Oh, no, no.
You cannot offend
Your
granny.
Yes, indeed.
And
Yes,
so
indeed.
we capitalized on that and said, hey, go get your friends.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know anyone else that would like to come? We've got grant-funded programs. You don't have to pay. And so they just kept coming. And even now at South Campus, this semester we have 1,200 students. And it's amazing because now we we have to have parking permits because we have nowhere to park. So it's a wonderful accent to the intention of bringing lifelong learners, bringing skills and trades, expanding dual credit, and giving people options and pathways so you don't have the dropout more than you have the drop in.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I saw when I was on the board, I went to a classroom and I just sit in the back, and I saw some dynamics with the older people being in the class. You know, we're in an urban environment. A lot of these young people going to high school don't have
Grandparents.
parents.
Right.
The parents are elsewhere, they're raised by grandparents or whatever. And I saw something occur in that classroom where they not only loved but showed respect for that older person.
Yes.
And would go to that older person could get control where even the
Yes,
instructor could.
yes.
But I said, that's amazing because they're learning to respect
Right.
people in the process. And that's a great human lesson that they're learning in the college. But I just had to say
No,
that.
but that's a perfect add-on because it is all about unconditional love.
Right.
What the grandparents and the elder in the classroom, the age of wisdom gives to those young people that we used to have. I always say it this way. We had that in the first era of segregation. We had that when we all went to school. We had grandparents and parents and just adults, more adults than you knew what to do with. Your parents or not, you were going to toe the line.
Right,
Because everybody's
right.
kids was everybody's kids. In the community we have today, to be able to recreate that in those classrooms like that is wonderful. That's
Yes.
the piece I
Yes.
feel been missing for a long time.
Yes, yes. And it is a wonderful piece. Even in the inaugural class, there was a young woman, and she was Hispanic. She was probably 19 or 20, and she walked in the class. She had all these elders, and she was like, room full of grandparents. But she found, after 3 days, I said, well, you know, you'd like to change class? She said, oh, no, I'm not giving up this class.
That's right.
So they had embraced her, and even when they needed help, she was able to help them, and when she needed help, they were able
Yeah.
to help her. And I was really, really floored by the opportunities that were offered at the end of that inaugural class. They said, well, what do we do next? What's the next class that we take? So they expected continuation, and then they expected their grandchildren to participate. They expected the community to come in. They expected their pastors to make the broad brush stroke announcements. So we have a system, a flow of information, so that those who have any interest whatsoever in education can walk into the doors of Houston Community College and find what they need.
Well, maybe intergenerational learning may just be the wave of the future because it addresses multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multi-everything communities together.
Right.
All right, and allows this kind of dialogue and conversation that normally wouldn't happen, particularly from different parts of the community to come together to study together, which may be a way to bridge some of these gaps that we have.
Yes.
Because the gaps are there in almost every aspect of life. But I think the community college has always been, the way I define a community college, third-party neutral mediating facilitating organization. We don't have a dog in the hunt. We don't have an axe to grind. We just want you to come,
Yes.
get the best education so you can be the best person, not just to grow and survive, but to thrive.
Yes.
We want you to thrive.
Yeah, we also want our tax base to grow.
Yes, we do.
That's right. This job that you're going to get at the end of this thing will help us go forward. So let's talk about this future. We've got a few minutes left. Where do we see the next phase, the next leg of this wonderful college growing and going into?
One of the things that I am keen about is having a full flow from high school to college. And I've actually had great conversations with my alma mater, Rice University. As you both know, we now have the first African-American provost.
Yes.
Dr. Reginald DeRoche, who was actually the dean of the engineering school. So I have asked that they would consider the 2-year Houston Community College path to the 2-year HBCU or Standard University path to the 2-year master's path at Rice University.
Okay.
And they believe that's a viable path because they do have room and funds
Right.
for master's degree programs at Rice University. So we are looking at that full flow, and I am very excited
exciting.
about the ability to accomplish that.
Well, I think Texas has to do that because we're the second largest state in the country, and I'm not going to talk about our literacy rate, but it's not good.
No.
And the problem with that is that I think by linking your high schools with your community colleges, to universities, I think you not only have a pathway, but you're giving young people the future. You're telling them there is a future. You can see it. Matter of fact, you can experience it right here. In some cases, we might not have to build a separate early college, but we arrange courses where they come to the community college to take those courses so they can take their dual education courses and they get the experience. You know, when we did that before, we found that those students even act differently.
Yes,
Because
yes,
they
we
were
did.
in college
Yes.
now.
Oh, yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think we have that opportunity again, and I think that we should take it.
Yes, we should. Absolutely. And I am an advocate, and if I ever have any student that kind of steps back, I go and get my elders, and it's handled.
We all had them in our classes when we grew
Right.
up, announced, unannounced when they'd show up, and so
Right.
they were there standing and sitting in the back of the class, giving that support and encouragement.
Right.
So let's close on this note. If the crystal ball was brought out, and we would say in the next 10 years of the 60-year anniversary, when we were sitting here talking about the 60th anniversary of HCC, what do we want to say? What's that speech going to be?
That 80% of the Harris County population took at least one class from Houston Community College.
All right. Bruce?
I think we will say that we have made a significant difference in the economy of Houston because with us, we not only upskilled, we upgraded the population and intelligence of this community.
All right. I'm going to close with this thought and note, thank you both very much, Bruce and Pretta, for doing this. This has been great. How I've always thought about Houston Community College is that as we go forward into the future, that we live in this wonderful world of democracy and learning how to be citizens together and work together, and that we thrive by being clear on our duties and obligations and responsibilities, which is the we and us, and not so much focus always on the individual rights and privileges, which is the I and me, and bringing together this broad variety of Houstonians here at HCC is a way to do that. Because I think as you look at the fourth largest city in America, soon, some say it's sooner than later to be the third, we are diverse, yes, we are. Diversity is not the issue. We can triple over our diversity. It's how does that diversity work, grow, and thrive together for the future? How does the pluralistic society begin to change how it understands each other and understands how to look out and work and serve each other? How do we grow from being that wonderful city of looking at how we, the people, can really become us and move forward? I think by learning together, spending time together, developing together, growing together, being creative together is the only way. So the people that come to HCC, the classes, the diversity, the mix, the international, the age groups, everything, that's the future of this city.
Yes, it is.
And it happens right here
Yes, it
at your Houston Community College for the last 50 years and for the next 50 years going forward, because without it, Houston would not be nor be able to become the city of the shining city on the hill that Houston has a chance to do. Education is the way to get there. Education is the only vehicle where you have a group to understand how to do that. I have to get out of here. I want to thank you for being part of this podcast for the 50th anniversary and going forward. Again, you can catch us on Dialogue Houston, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 a.m., 6 p.m., Saturday afternoons at 3 p.m. And I'll close the way I've closed every Dialogue Houston show for the last 26 seasons until we see and meet each other again. Peace, power, and love.